They did it again. Right as we thought Kash Patel was going to be confirmed, the Democrats on the Senate committee used their rights to delay the vote for one more week.
The minority, as well as myself, have exercised their right and my right under the committee rules to hold over the nomination of Kash Patel to be director of the FBI.
Now, we all know Dick Durbin is the man who's been trying his best to stop Kash Patel from becoming the head of the FBI. And here's Senator Durbin trying to justify why Mr. Patel shouldn't take up this position.
Secondly, we have an individual in Kash Patel who has published a book which in detail describes his view of politics in America. It is a book that is filled with grievances, filled with conspiracy theories, and filled with information of how he sided with the January 6 rioters against the police in this very Capitol complex. And so when he came to testify before the committee, we had some questions that he was asked and he needed to answer about his conduct. And we went through them, particularly on the element of the J6 choir. I know this sounds like a curious thing to spend any time on, but it's a reflection on his priorities and the fact that he's asking to head up the most important single law enforcement agency in the United States at a time when he decided with the so-called political prisoners of January 6th instead of the brave men and women who risked their lives to protect us here in the Capitol complex.
I'm sure it's all about Kash Patel and his book in which he defends the January 6th protesters. And surely it has nothing to do with what Senator Blackburn announced just before the vote was delayed.
I've repeatedly requested a subpoena for the complete unredacted Epstein flight logs from the FBI. I've also pushed for the release of Ghislaine Maxwell's unredacted little black book of contacts and addresses. Yet time and again, in the last Congress, Democrat leadership and then FBI Director Wray stonewalled my requests. Make no mistake, by blocking my request, they were delaying justice for Epstein's many victims. But now, with Republican control of Congress and President Trump back in the Oval Office, we're going to see some real change on this issue. Just last week, the president's excellent pick for FBI Director Kash Patel vowed to work with me in releasing the Epstein records and breaking apart the trafficking rings that harm countless women and children across our country.
I think it's about time the media starts calling out Dick Durbin. I mean, can it be any more obvious that he is trying to protect people by keeping Kash Patel out? We all know about the Bill Gates meetings, and Mr. Patel even pointed it out in an interview.
Who's on that list? You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? Dick Durbin comes over the top and says, no, we're not going to release the names. I don't care about the list itself, but if you release the names, right?
And I don't even have to tell you what kind of relationship Bill Gates had with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, as I said, it's not one thing, it was many things. But I did not like that he'd had meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, no.
Epstein had a way of sexually compromising people. Is that what Melinda was warning you about?
No. I mean, No, I had dinner with him, and that's all.
And yet the media is happy to tell us that it's all a coincidence that all these people are connected to this web. And if you're thinking, what can these guys achieve by delaying the vote for 1 week? Well, I'm sure you haven't forgotten just how much Joe Biden achieved during his last month in the White House. That's why I'm kind of disappointed about what happened, but I'm still hopeful that this administration will give us all the names of those evil men who were involved with Epstein. And the reason why I'm so hopeful is because Donald Trump seems to be fulfilling all of his campaign promises. For instance, I'm sure you guys remembered his promise to remove taxes from tips. Well, let's hear what Caroline Levitt is saying.
So these are the tax priorities of the Trump administration that the president has laid out for members in that meeting today. No tax on tips, which is obviously a very public campaign promise that the president made. No tax on seniors' Social Security. No tax on overtime pay. Renewing President Trump's 2017 middle-class tax cuts. Again, these are the president's priorities. Adjusting the SALT cap, eliminate all the special tax breaks for billionaire sports team owners, close the carried interest tax deduction loophole, tax cuts for Made in America products. This will be the largest tax cut in history for middle-class working Americans. The president is committed to working with Congress to get this done.
Now, the funny thing is that Trump's critics, well, they're angry even at these tax breaks, but I think this gives a fitting response to all those people.
Imagine being so delusional and brainwashed and propagandized that you do not want the government to stop taking money out of your check. Like, I've never been like that, so just imagine that. I can't.
Now, there's another story I want to talk about today.
A large chunk of ice crashed through the roof of a Central Florida home on Monday afternoon, leaving residents and officials scratching their heads. The incident happened around 3:30 p.m. in the sunny Seminole Woods neighborhood of Palm Coast, where temperatures were a balmy 75 degrees. A neighbor heard a huge crash and called police. The Flagler County Sheriff's Office and Palm Coast Fire Department discovered a significant hole in the metal roof and ice remnants inside the home. Miraculously, no one was injured. The home was deemed safe for occupancy, and firefighters covered the damaged roof with a blue tarp to prevent further damage. Authorities suspect the ice may have fallen from an aircraft and have enlisted the help of the Federal Aviation Administration to investigate. Aviation experts say that while rare, such incidents do occur. They explain that ice can form on the exterior of planes and detach as temperatures rise during descent.
6-foot chunk of ice falling from the sky, slamming into a home in Palm Coast, Florida, north of Daytona Beach. The ice smashing through the metal roof of the home. Pieces of ice also found in the street.
You heard that right. Apparently, we now have ice blocks falling from the sky, and they are huge. And according to this lady, the same thing is happening in other parts of America as well.
I don't know how this isn't viral. Ice is falling from the sky. And this isn't just the scenario in Florida, which I'm sure you've heard about, where it fell through the lady's roof. This is in California. This just happened. I just saw this guy's video. Look at this. Look at the detail on this ice. I saved the video. I'm going to show you. Insane. And the weather is beautiful outside, mind you. Like this isn't happening in cold places, right? Florida, California now. Check this out.
I'm over here catching tags.
Like what? Look how these are like massive chunks of ice. Look at this.
Big chunks.
This is probably what went through the house in Florida and caused that dent in the house. Insane. Go watch the video. This guy goes on to say that he like jumped on the ice. He tried breaking this ice. It will not break. And this is what it did to the house in Florida.
I don't know if you can tell, but there's a little bit of ice. There's ice over here.
What? 2025 cannot get more insane. Like, what is going on?
Now look, we all know about the geoengineering efforts started by the last administration, and it looks like the truth about all of that weather modification is finally about to come to light. According to reports, after USAID, DOGE staffers are now investigating NOAA. Now, an official at the agency told the newspaper that they apparently just sort of walked past security and said, "Get out of my way." And they're looking for access for the IT systems, as they have in other agencies. They will have access to the entire computer system, a lot of which is confidential information. I don't know about you guys, but I would love to know what kind of story that confidential data will tell. Now, once again, we have a Democrat senator who doesn't like what Elon is doing. His name is Chris Van Hollen, and this is what he posted on X. Hearing reports that Musk's cronies are targeting NOAA, infiltrating key systems and locking out career employees. NOAA is vital for weather forecasting, scientific research, and more. Their critical work saves lives. My team and I are looking into this, and we will not stand for it. Senator, all we want to know is what kind of scientific research was being conducted by this agency. But we all know you can't let us see those research documents because that would likely confirm some more so-called conspiracies. And while we are on the topic of conspiracies, I want to tell you how Wall Street and the Biden administration have created a huge housing trap in America. But before I tell you about it, I want you to see this video.
What a real-world example of how every generation is affected by the fact that private equity is buying up residential properties to make us perpetual renters for the rest of our lives. I just got off the phone with my dad, who purchased their home in 2004 for $126,000. 2 years ago, they wanted to sell. They're getting older. They wanted to have a smaller home so that they had less things to worry about. They tried to sell their home for $185,000, which it had appraised for, and they couldn't sell it. They couldn't sell it to save their lives, so they finally just gave up. They settled in, and they're like, we're just going to live here forever. Now, in 2024, it is $385,000 that it has been appraised for that they have to pay taxes on, because the market value of the houses in the area has raised so much because a bunch of private equity companies have come in and purchased a bunch of residential areas to rent out and a bunch of new properties to build up apartment buildings to rent out. My dad talked to the appraiser and he said, in what world is someone in this small town going to pay almost $400,000 for this house? It's a fine house, but it is not a mansion. And in this small town, that's what $400,000 should buy you. It should buy you a mansion. And 3 to 4 years ago, it would have bought you a mansion, a beautiful home, multiple car garages, like very nice home. And now $400,000 gets you an old, beat up home that's lovely, and they are paying taxes on that amount, and they are going broke because they can't afford to pay taxes on a house that is not worth what the market value is, which they could never sell this home for. Nobody who is local to that area can afford that.
This video raised a ton of questions in my mind. First of all, I wanted to know why the prices have suddenly skyrocketed all over the country. And here's what I found. We all know when the pandemic hit, the Federal Reserve dropped the interest rate to basically zero. On top of this, most workers were asked to work from home, and this created a perfect storm where houses were cheaper than before and people could just move to the suburbs without worrying about their jobs. As a result of this, everyone and their grandmother tried to buy a new place. And to make matters worse, house flipping and residential real estate investing rose drastically. Real estate analytics firm CoreLogic reports that investors accounted for more than a quarter of all single-family home purchases, 26% in June 2023. In March of 2020, when the pandemic began, that figure was below 15%. As the demand for houses went up, the prices skyrocketed, and no one in the government ever thought about stopping this madness.
New starter home here in the Northeast starts at $500,000. I got this comment quite a bit about how just getting into the housing market here in the Northeast is just insane right now. So for the boomers in the chat, or your parents you can send this to, tell you, oh, just buy a cheap home, buy a $300,000-$400,000 home. We're going to take a tour of the Northeast and start looking at what even $500,000 gets you. This is all the homes priced around $500,000 in the entire Northeast of our country. Not under, literally right about $500,000. Starting here in Monmouth County, we're going to start at our home base and go north. For $500,000, you have this beautiful home in Freehold. And literally the paint is falling off the front. Moving up the Parkway a little bit to Linden. Here you got a 2-bedroom, 1-bath for $499. Oops, I'm sorry, $495. What a bargain. Heading out to Long Island, you get a fence. Okay, maybe not that bad. $500,000 for a 2-bedroom home. Let's go an hour north of the city, where you can get this 2-bedroom, 1-bath home. Let's head over to beautiful Connecticut. Again, another little 2-bedroom home.
And now we're finally starting to see the consequences of this shopping spree. Mortgage delinquencies are already rising, and it's making it much harder for folks to get a loan. In fact, things have become so bad that home purchase loans are considered just as risky as refinance loans. And because of these extremely high prices, people cannot sell their homes, and they're pretty much forced into paying much higher property taxes. And while these families are on the verge of losing their homes, Wall Wall Street investors keep buying more and more rental homes in big cities. For instance, in Atlanta, nearly 11% of all rental homes in the 5-county area are now owned by 3 real estate companies. And did you know that Blackstone now owns 300,000 residential units across the U.S. and nearly doubled its portfolio in 2021? With $1 trillion in assets, it owns 63,000 single-family homes, 149,000 apartment units, and 70 mobile home parks. This is no joke, and I would seriously hope that this government would try to protect average Americans from these vultures, or we will have entire neighborhoods that belong to companies like Blackstone. And we're going to wrap up today's video right there. I would love to know what you think about this Kash Patel situation. Also, in your opinion, which agency should Elon investigate next? Share your thoughts with everyone in the comments down below. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's video, and I hope to see you in the next one.